Hello, my name's Andy, I'm the Ginger Gamer, welcome to episode 7. So, I'm back working on the Prehistoric City map, which is basically a whole park map that's a city. And if you've not watched the channel before, basically I'm making this map really to practice and improve and almost perfect making buildings and making more formal structures, which isn't necessarily what the game's about, but I thought it'd be a good way of brushing up on my skills in this area. Now, there is going to be a kind of reason why all these dinosaurs, because there will be dinosaurs, are in this city map, and I've already started some background work on that for the final kind of park tour video that I'll release. Anyway, in this episode, as you can see, I'm adding texts in the form of signs, etc. to the map. Now, I haven't really used the text function that much in the map, in the game, but it's actually quite simple and it's really easy to do, especially with the way you can resize objects in the game, which means you can just make the text in the default size and then scale it in any way you see fit. Now, you'll notice as I work through this, there's 3 basic ways in which I name things. And by that I mean the theme to the naming. And basically, they either relate to the city itself, which I've called Haleston, not a real town or city, but it is a kind of a fake UK city. So they either relate to that or areas of it, like park. This is the Haleston Park Hotel. It's kind of like a small part of the overall locale, is the kind of park area. So some things like the hotel are called the Haleston Park Hotel, and that's just a kind of conceit to give it a name. Now, the other sort of naming convention will be related to Jurassic Park and all things Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, and I guess most people will be able to spot most of them. There might be a couple that you won't guess, but there'll be a lot of them that will be obviously named after either characters or places or actors in the series of films. And the third type is really only centered around one area of the map, and I'll talk about that when we get there. So as you can see here, I'm making the signs for the hotel, and again, it's really pretty simple. At the moment, I'm just putting a support kind of framework for the letters. Now, in the game, if you color most things pure white, they will be kind of slightly fluorescent at night, as you can see here, which is good because that means you don't really have to light it. Now what I'm doing now is I'm placing the name of the hotel down at a lower level. You can see it's following the curve at the front of the building, which was a little bit tricky, but eventually I got the hang of it. I did think about maybe doing the whole word and then curving it round as a group, but actually I found it better to just place letters and scale them and then attach them to the wall at the angle that the wall is, and that seemed to work best. Now, with the game, you've only really got one font. Now, I guess I think I'm pretty sure you can download different fonts that people have made. I haven't, and I think it probably means some of the signs don't look as good. Later on, I'll show you some signs outside of the church and by the park, which I think could have done with a different font. The font for kind of like the hotel here, etc., works reasonably well. There's me nearly misspelling park, but I recover. But yeah, the font is, it's a particularly stylized font and it doesn't work that well for everything. And also you can't do lowercase letters as well, which I think would be quite good to have that option for lowercase. Maybe in the future, or maybe I'll download fonts that other people have made and use them. Here I'm just lighting up the font because, as I said earlier, white fonts will look as if they're lit up at night, but I have to light this one, so I just add some lights on top of it just to show it off. Now, the next ones I do, these are actually two buildings in the game that I've pretty much taken from the game itself. So this is the clothes shop, and then in a bit I do a cafe. I want to take away a bit from the Prehistoric Kingdom themes, so I've decided to call it a name. So I did a bit of Googling for independent clothes shops and found one called The Forum, which I thought was, kind of slightly pretentious names that some independent clothes shop have, and that's what I've called this one. Now, in the main, I've just done one colour text for most of the signs. I change it a little bit here because I think it looks quite good. It fits in nicely with the kind of shop it is, really. Now this is a cafe. Again, it's the cafe that comes with the game, really. I've taken out a little bit of some of the bespoke design of it and changed it up a little bit. So I call it a different name. And again, I'm calling it Park because that's kind of the area we're in, is the park area of the town. So I call it Park Bites. And in a little bit, once I've finished it and added some lights, as you may know, there's other little cafes in part of the map which are also called Park Bites as well, because they're a bit of a franchise within the town. And again, I just copy and paste it, really, and I think I resize it a little bit, or at least just sort of turn it around just to fit the larger cafe that's near the cinema in the town. Here I'm changing the lights from the initial lights I kind of copied over, because I think sometimes when you copy over lights you lose the light effect, and I'm not sure why that is. This next building is the library, and again I did a bit of Google image search for libraries, and this is roughly based on a real library. I can't remember exactly where it is in the UK, but it has a kind of quite unique design. And again, I went for doing something like this just to kind of get a hang of doing more sort of curved buildings rather than just your normal rectangular ones, just because they had a bit of a challenge, and that was the point of doing the whole map anyway, is to get better at making buildings. So anything that was a little bit of a challenge and a little bit more difficult, I think worked quite well. Now this is the fire station, as you will see when I add the text to it, and this is also based on a real fire station in the UK. And again, I named this just after the town because I think it makes sense. And again, this is fairly straightforward, and it was quite a straightforward building to make, actually. I didn't film me making this. It was before I decided that I was going to have a YouTube channel. It's a lot. I think I spent nearly 300 hours on this map. I will actually count that up, and when the map's finished I'll show some stats for it. But yeah, it took me a long time. Now this next building is the police station, and again, very boringly, I'm just calling it Hailstone Police Station. And I very unimaginatively give this a blue colouring for the police station. Now, again, like most of it, I'm repeating myself a little bit here. Most of the buildings in this map I have based on real buildings that I've found through doing some Googling research. Apart from the ambulance station, which is the next building here, I pretty much did. I suppose I looked for one building, but this is nothing like it. It's just kind of the idea I had in my head of what a largish ambulance station would look like. Not all places have ambulance stations. Often the ambulances are based on other sites within the National Health Service that they have, and they have sort of shared occupancy. But some places do have, dedicated ambulance stations. So this is very, very loosely based, but mostly the idea I had for it. Now, you notice there's grass there because I deleted the road by accident. I have gone back and fixed that and put the road back in at some point. Occasionally I'll accidentally add something to another group whilst I'm making things in the map and not realise that it's added to another group, delete the thing I'm making and then delete the rest of the stuff that's in the group, which if you spot it straight away isn't really a problem. But if you don't spot it, you can load the map back up next time you go to work on it, and half the roads are missing, which is a bit of a pain. So yeah, I gave it kind of a red sign for this and then put a white text on, and I think it looks quite good. I do think things look good in the day, but I think they really look good at night. Now, this is the third type of naming convention I spoke about earlier. Now, if you don't recognise this pub, you may well know I've named it the Winchester Tavern. It's basically the pub from the Shaun of the Dead movie. And the reason I put it in is I wanted to put a pub in, and I thought it was the best option. Now, I used to do modding for Quake, and I was making a city map for the PC game Quake, and I did actually do the Winchester pub in that as well. Although I think it tends to look a bit better in Prehistoric Kingdom, even though it's not really what even though it's not what Prehistoric Kingdom is made for. It does look better than the one I made in Quake. So yeah, Winchester's Tavern. Now, I do a little bit more naming around this pub as well later on, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. Now, this is just a random kind of business factory kind of place, and this is I lied actually, there's 4 naming types. This is the 4th, and it is just a random name I've made up for a business I haven't even defined in my head, and I just was trying to think of something, and this phrase Calatex came up, which sounds a kind of very cliched kind of company. Maybe it makes chemicals or it's in the IT business, but I went with it. Now, this is one of the favourite buildings I've made in the map. It's based on a real cinema in the UK, and it's kind of quite an old-fashioned, almost Art Deco but not quite kind of design. And it's actually really is an Odeon cinema. That's a brand name, if you don't know, of cinemas in Britain. And and it was fairly easy to do the text, and because I make it quite sort of thin and tall, it matches the original text quite well. And then I add one to the curved bit at the front there as well, which is where it is in real life, as it were. And in a bit I copy and paste part of the frame from the hotel signage and add that to there, because that's again what it's got in real life. And I think overall it has quite a good effect. Now, for some reason in the real cinema it has the word cinema on either side of this tall thing, I guess to advertise the fact it's a cinema to people who didn't know. But I thought I'd copy that and add that as well, even though in real life it's slightly unnecessary these days. And I think now I'm going to show it at night, because I think it does look pretty good at night. Maybe I don't, which would be a shame. Yes, I do. I think it does look quite good at night. Again, because the white colouring actually looks kind of fluorescent in the dark. Now, off to the canal part of the map, and it's actually this canal basin, And again, in real life in canal basins, sometimes there'll be signage saying this is a canal basin and naming it. So that may seem a bit silly, but it's actually based on a real canal basin. And then I've got a Middleport factory. Again, that's slightly based on a real canal side factory. It's got a similar name, but slightly different. Now, from here on, mostly, I'm not going to show you me making every bit of text. I'll just show you the texts and signage that I've created. And again, that other building next to the canal is a brewery. And again, I think that looks pretty good. And I do think adding the text and the signs kind of brings things to life a little bit, considering it's not that big of a feature, but it does really work. And there's the Lido, and I've given that a very imaginative name of Hailstone Lido. You may also see, if you watch the video of me making this, that I took some of the windows. Now, the very tall office building towards the front of the map, I've named AJS Finance. And if you don't know, in real life, my initials are AJS. So I guess that's my fifth way of naming things. I really didn't work this out properly before I started making this video. Yeah, I named that building AJS after myself. Right, this is a different kind of sign, so I'm kind of showing you a lot of the process here. And this is the sign at the front of the church. And this is where having a different font, and certainly having lowercase, would have been really useful, and it probably would have looked a bit better. If better fonts do come with the game in the future, I may change this, or I may go back and download some fonts and change it. But it's kind of okay. I'm not that too bothered by it, but it looks a bit modern, I guess, is my complaint with it, really. So to try to overcome the fact that it hasn't got lowercase, I do a larger initial letter to try and make it look a little better. Now, I've decided that Hailstone City is also part of Hailstone Parish. I don't know if that technically works, but it made for a nicer naming of the church, really. And the church is, I don't think I show off the church very well in this video that I made here, because it's mostly about the signage. But I do think the church is one of the better buildings I've made. And again, I made that quite early on and took quite a lot of time. But it's one of my favourite buildings in the game. Yeah, as I'm finishing it now, yeah, it just would have looked better with different kind of different fonts. Would have looked a lot better. Now, what I'm on to now, and I will show you the first one, and then in some kind of detail, and then I'll go back and show you all the different ones I've added to the map, is these are street signs. And again, for something quite little, I do think they kind of do bring the map alive a little bit, adding street signs, because you don't really notice them not there until you put them there, if that makes sense. It does kind of make it that little bit more real, and of course it's a real pseudo-realistic thing. It doesn't look, it's not like games that are designed to make cities or make environments and to make them look really real and sort of photorealistic or whatever, but it just does make things look a little bit real, adding a street sign. So I had a lot to think about in naming all the streets, and again I do fall back on I think I stick to the first three types of naming that I spoke about, and that is areas of the town that I've sort of invented. Like, again, this is called Park Road because it's the park area of the city, or they're named after actors or places or characters from the Jurassic World series. And there's one type that's based around the Winchester Tavern, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. Now, when I first made it here, I was thinking I'd just put the street sign attached to the wall, which is something you do get, but I changed my mind and decided that I'd have it sort of a more freestanding one. as much because it will just be easier to then go around and copy and paste, and they'll all look the same. Now, one thing you may see I do later is if you put something like this park sign, and here's another road that I've created. Oh no, this is actually the park road sign down the other end of the road. So I haven't just got one sign at one end of the street. Now, perpendicular to that original sign is going to be a new street, and it's going to be Old Park Street. And again, this is the other end of Old Park Street. Now, where you place street signs is quite interesting. I bet you can't guess where I got that name from. It's quite interesting is you tend to have them at the end, which is the end or the beginning, depending on which way you come down. Or like this street sign, which is opposite a junction. So basically, if you were to drive up to that junction, you'd be able to see what road you're coming to. So that's kind of why I've placed them not exactly at the end. I don't do it completely how street signs are done. I did it with what makes sense to me, really. It may not be perfect. What I was going to say is that if you place a modular piece quite close to a fence, a proper fence in the game, it's really hard to then highlight it. So you have to kind of go around the back of it between the fence and the modular piece to then be able to highlight it if you want to copy and paste it. Now, this road is Monson Road, and this is actually the real road that the pub that was the Winchester Tavern, I don't think the pub even exists now in any form, but that was the Winchester Tavern in the Shaun of the Dead movie. This is the real road that it's in. So that's why I named that road Monson Road. It kind of made sense. Now, very imaginatively, the road by the railway station, I'm calling Station Road, which is, I think, in the UK, most roads that have a train station are called Station Road because we're super imaginative in the UK. Now, Car Street isn't anything to do with cars. Again, it has some relevance to the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World series. Now, if you spot all of these and you know where they're from, please drop a message in the comment section and let me know. Now, I'm making a sort of detour from doing signs, but it makes sense. So basically, I wasn't happy that the road you can see at the top of the screen there isn't connected to any of the other roads. So I thought it made sense to put a little one-way road between the two separate road layouts, and so I just had to kind of take the pavement away. It's good as well because there is kind of too much pavement there, so it helps from that point of view. What it also means is I can make, I think, 3 other kind of bits of signage as well, which I haven't really put in many other parts of the map. I may do later. I don't show you all the signage that's going to be in the map. I show you quite a lot of it in this video, but I don't show all of it because there's tons of it. And I still haven't finished, actually. I still got quite a lot to do. So this is me just filling in the road and the double yellow lines and tidying everything up a little bit and putting the lines, the kind of stop lines at the end of the one-way street. It's always funny when I watch speed builds, whether they're mine or someone else's. I really wish you could make things this quick, because in reality, I can't remember if this is 10 times. I think it's 10 times speed. I'm not sure, but it would be great to be able to do it this quick. So what I'm making here, and I was sure there was an arrow in a modular piece that's an arrow in the game somewhere, and I searched through the menu just for ages because I thought there was an arrow, but I couldn't find it. Now, if you know if there is an arrow, let me know. But in the end, I made one myself, which didn't take that long. So it's not the world's best arrow, but it kind of nice and quick and easy. And this is for a one-way sign that we have in the UK. And it's quite good actually in terms of making the signs or any text pieces that use text in the default size, because it's really easy to kind of like put it all together when it's bigger like this and then scale it down to the size you want it to be, and it works super well. And I think as many people who've made content for this game, and I've said it myself quite a lot as well, the scaling tool is just brilliant in this game. Now I think in the episode before last I did mention that I wish there was a bit of, that was just me going to my source images then, I do wish some of you had a choice between how the textures worked when you scaled, that you either shrunk the textures or you made there less of the texture, if that made sense. I've talked about it before, so I won't talk about it too much here, but it would make scaling almost perfect. Well, it would be perfect if that happened. So this is me just working out if this sign needs to be a bit smaller, which I think I do make it smaller. It is quite hard to get things to scale, especially things that aren't really standard. You know, I think if you've watched my previous videos, you know I use doors quite a lot, because doors are about 6'6" in the UK standard door size, and it makes it very easy to then scale from there and get it right, and get things in proportion. But with sort of non-standard things and things that I can't really put next to a door, it makes things a little bit tricky. But I think I get this sign fairly okay, and it's just the one-way street sign that you have in the UK. As you can see from my source images. Now, I don't normally keep that in. I'm pretty much looking at source images all the time when I'm making things, especially like I said that I've based a lot of the buildings on real buildings. But I do have a 2-monitor setup, so I don't always have the source images on the monitor that I'm recording through OBS. So you don't always get to see it, and sometimes when I have been doing that, I don't always keep it in when I have the finished edit. But I was watching something. I was watching some telly on my other monitor. Well, not telly, but I was watching Netflix on my other monitor whilst I was making this. So I had to swap to Google Chrome to look at my source images as I was making this. So that's why that's kept in. It's quite interesting. I do tend, whilst I'm making the maps and playing the game, to be watching YouTube and watching other people make content, whether it's in Prehistoric Kingdom or in Jurassic Park, because I just find it's quite kind of inspiration. And you'll watch them out of my corner eye. I'll be watching them and listening to what they're saying, and then think, oh yeah, I can put that later on. And you get kind of ideas for the game as well, even for kind of a map that's not really a park like this one. It is quite useful to be watching that, and I do find it sort of keeps my motivation up as I'm working as well. I think that's maybe just me, but it does help a lot. Now, as you see here, I'm trying to kind of get low down and get the angle right to see that the post is entering the ground right. Now, what the only thing I find quite difficult sometimes when you're working with brushes and moving them around, brushes, that's an old wrong term, with modular pieces or whatever, is seeing, if it's really fine detail, is seeing past the arrows or whatever thing you're using, whether it's rescaling or the arrows, whatever, is actually seeing past them to where the bit of the modular piece you're trying to work with. So it can be quite difficult at times. I'm still not happy about the size here, as you can see, so I adjust it a little bit more. I think once I put the post in and I was quite happy with the post, I thought the sign itself was a little bit on the large side. Now with that sign finished, I kind of decided to go the full hog really and look for a giveaway sign, because I realised traffic coming down that little one-way street, it's got to know it's got to stop at the end and give way to traffic, so I thought I'd do a giveaway sign. I sometimes when I've made this map and why I've spent nearly 300 hours on this map is I'll get really into one part of it and just probably overdo what I need to do. I don't really need to do a giveaway sign, and although this is speeded up and it doesn't take very long, it took quite a long time in real time, especially as I edited bits out. My first initial go at it was rubbish, so I started again. Here's me just moving that out of the way a little bit. But yeah, I do find I don't know if when you play the game whether you do a similar thing. You get bogged down in one area or one little thing and just add more and more bits, or just get really keen to make it really complete and add lots of detail. And I think sometimes it's always good to step back a little bit and think, do you really need that there? And I think actually for this it does work, and I'm not going to apologise too much. There are some other. I am going to put some of these signs elsewhere on the map because I think they're quite good. I'm also going to do some traffic lights and also some lights you have on zebra crossings. I realise I haven't got them. They're kind of like the posts with a kind of yellow globe on top of a light. And this is yet another sign. What is this sign for? I can't remember. We will see in a moment. Oh, this is the no right turn sign. I remember, because obviously sometimes it's a little bit dangerous going out onto a busier road, especially on a bend. So you can't actually turn right here. So this is a no right turn, which initially I make no left turn, which is a bit silly. I didn't make it in real life. It's a bit more of a curved sign, as you might get a glimpse of from the source images, but I couldn't be bothered to do that. I don't get too obsessed with making detail. I decided, this will be good enough. And when I finish this one, which I do in a minute once I've resized everything properly, I just add another sign to the back of that sign, which you do find on some streets in Britain. You'll get the reverse side will contain more different information. I hope that makes sense. I'm waffling a lot at this point. I think I'll just play some music now and let you watch what I get up to for a bit, and I'll be back in a bit with some more commentary. So as you can see on the back of that no right turn sign, I've put a no entry sign, because obviously you shouldn't have cars coming down that way. So this is just another sign I made, which is the sign to Middleport factory, which you might have remembered was next to the canal, but that's a road that just goes to that factory off the main road. Now this is some signs I've put up around the football stadium. Now there's 3 car parks by the football stadium. There's one that's players only, which is why you've got a players only sign. And there is a barrier further down that road to stop people going to park where they shouldn't. And then this front one is staff only. And the one that goes round the side of the stadium and is the biggest car park is for supporters. And that was all basically the street signs that I coloured the frame red just to make it slightly different. Here's a sign I made for the woods, which run to the back of the town hall and towards, I think, the train station. Yep, by memory. I think that's quite a nice sign. Now this is the business park. Now I've done 3 different names, I'm sure you can see. One is Stella, which is relevant to Jurassic Park. The other one is Biosyn backwards, and the other one is Masrani, and I think you'll recognise them. And I've done them in the text is the colours of the accents to the office buildings, if that makes sense. Right, again towards the front of the city map, there is a little inner city park area, which I think is slightly posher than most inner city park areas, but I've called that Allotments Gardens. And again, if you know how that relates to Jurassic Park, I'd be interested to hear. And now moving on to the town hall, which again, I'm quite impressed what I've done with this. I did this so many hours ago, so many weeks ago I made this building, but I think it looks quite good. And it's the town hall, so I've just put some town hall text. And then I've added a bit more fencing and then put a little sign, City of Alliston Town Hall. And again, I'd like a different font for that, but I think it works quite well. Now this is the allotment area, and again I've just done, doesn't show up that well, but just Hailstone allotments really. So no really great name. I do like how the light shines through there. I do think that looks good at night, and it will definitely look good when there's dinosaurs in. Now I've got a lot of shops that I haven't really opened up yet and shown a lot of, that are basically quite old-fashioned sort of shop designs that you'll find in British streets, and there's about 15 I think, and I show you I think about 2/3 of the ones I've done. Now Laura is related to Jurassic Park. Fish and Chips is obviously just fish and chips. It takes a lot of thought to try and think of some of the names for shops. I've still got those, quite a few to do. I think I've got sort of 6 to do. Arnold's Books, again I think you can work out where Arnold comes from. JG's Mini Mart. And so the conceit to this whole map is this map has been left, the city rather has been left to the dinosaurs, and people have left it. So the shops are kind of slightly boarded up, which is why I haven't done a load of detail on the front. They've all kind of got like their security fronts down on them. Peck's Pets, which I think is a really good name if you know who Peck is in relation to Jurassic Park. And this next sign I'm really pleased with. I think it looks quite good. The different colours of the letters relating to game controller buttons. Quick Manor Cafe is again related just to the fact we're by this old manor building. And A. Richards, again Jurassic Park related, nothing to do with Taylor's. Kirby Sweets, I know I could have called Kirby's a different kind of shop if you've watched Jurassic Park 3, but I kind of decided not to, so I've named it after a sweet shop. And then Deering Estate Agents. I am quite pleased that little corner of shops there, and the fact it's part of a larger square which includes the town hall, I quite like. No prizes for guessing Attenborough Court. Now there are quite a lot of in housing estates in England, especially in England I think, they're named after, this is a tougher one to guess by the way, Lowry Towers. No prizes, but I'd be interested if someone could guess that. But yeah, they are named after real people, so tower blocks will go up and they'll be named after real people like Richard Attenborough. So that's where I've got to with signs. I've still got a fair amount to do, but it does mean now I've started to do the signs and nearly completed them that I've nearly done with the map. I've got a little bit of landscaping to do around it, which I did a ton of this afternoon. I didn't really video it. I will do a little maybe do one more video before the kind of park tour where I show off a bit of the landscaping and what I've tried to do, and I'll talk about that a bit more. But the only other thing I've got to do other than landscaping is to make as many of the buildings as possible accessible to guests, so they can walk through a door and come out of another door, if that makes sense, or they can go and hide in it, or they can access the toilets or the cafe or whatever. And that won't take too long, actually. That'll probably be a couple of hours of work, really. And then it'll be time to place dinosaurs, open the park, and make the park tour video. Now, the park tour video is, again, I've got a little bit of a conceit, a little bit of a story behind it, and part of which was have a bit of a voiceover at the beginning explaining what's happened in the world and why these dinosaurs are there. And I didn't want to do it in my own voice, and I can't really do accents, and I didn't know anybody who could do a bit of acting for me, so I've used a bit of AI online, and I'm pretty pleased with the result. I don't think it's fooling anybody. I think you can tell it's an AI voice, but it does work quite well. But that's all a bit in the future. As I say, I may or may not make another video showing some of the landscaping, or I may go straight to the park tour. Thanks very much for watching this video. It's quite a long video, and I've been on holiday and I really wanted to get a video out, but I am feeling quite poorly today, which I think is why I've waffled and lost my voice and coughed a few times. I may edit the coughing out, but I'm not feeling great, which is why the commentary is not brilliant. But I wanted to show you what I've been up to and all the signs that I've made around the map, and there is a few more to do, but I won't record that. I've shown you pretty much how I've gone about doing it and what they look like, so that'll just be more of the same, really. So, as I said, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. It'd be great to get some more viewers to the videos, and it's really going to help me out if you like and subscribe and share it around as well. So it's a really quite a large community of people who make videos with these kinds of games, not just Prehistoric Kingdom, but obviously Jurassic World and loads of the different sort of city or world building games. So finally, once again, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time.